we're not getting a cap. And the owners, if they're going to push for a cap, you want to have a work stoppage after building some positive momentum, back-to-back years of increasing attendance? Be my guest. That would be the dumbest thing the sport could do.
Here we go. Ken Rosenthal, Inside Scoop Time, FT Senior Insider. Let's do Hall of Fame in a moment here, Ken. I actually wanted to backtrack a moment to your article about the Dodgers situation because we haven't had you on since they signed 8 more players. So can you summarize or at least give a few points on what you said in your article in The Athletic? And I'm sure there were some fun comments going back at you.
Well, basically what I said was that every fan would want his or her team to operate the way the Dodgers are operating. And that while the Dodgers have immense financial advantages, there's no question about that, other teams should compete with the same passion to the best of their capabilities. Obviously, we know the Pittsburgh Pirates can't do what the Dodgers do. And I mentioned that, hey, there's going to be talk of a salary cap. There always is. And the fact of the matter is, if we're talking strictly about competitive balance, those leagues with caps, the NFL, the NBA, they don't have what baseball has. We haven't had a repeat champion since 1998 to 2000 with the Yankees. In the NFL, it's Mahomes or Brady in the AFC Championship game every year for like the last 15 years. So if you're talking about financial fairness, different question. And that is a question that continues to kind of haunt the game because the disparity between the haves and the have-nots just keeps increasing. But my basic premise here was, let's see more teams really try to the best of their capabilities before we have these massive complaints about the Dodgers. And the other thing is, guys, and you guys know this, it's baseball. There's no guarantee the Dodgers are going to win the World Series. The expanded playoffs have made it more difficult for teams to win the series. Can you estimate or predict that the Dodgers will win the NL West? Yeah, you probably can do that. That's been the case for a number of years now. So I understand the concern and the frustration among some fans, but at the same time, I'll go back to what I said at the beginning of that article. You wish your owner was acting the way the Dodgers owner was acting within his means.
That's my point. That's my point I've been saying since, after the Scott thing, but then the Yates thing, and everyone's complaining, like, who's going to be the team that steps up and beats them? Who's going to be the team? And I've said this for years, that in Major League Baseball, give or take every season, there's at least half the teams that aren't really trying. Now, it used to be different. Hey, we're trying to get to 500, keep our fans happy. Now teams are like, we're just not even going to try. We don't even care what the fans think anymore. So I agree with you, Ken. Who's going to be the team to step up and say, hey, we're going to try and match him, whether it's the Mets, someone else, the Padres, the Diamondbacks in the National League. And then why don't every team have to try? Like at least somewhat try. I don't know. Because it used to be like, we're not very good, but if we can get to 500, man, our fans will be pumped.
Well, and now, AJ, it should be, if we can get into the playoffs, who knows what might happen? Because there are 12 teams in the playoffs, and we have seen 2 years ago, Arizona Diamondbacks get to the World Series. Last year, the Cleveland Guardians get to the ALCS with their starting rotation, not what they intended it to be. So, again, I empathize with fans in Cleveland and Pittsburgh and Tampa Bay, and I empathize with the situations those teams are in. At the same time, and this isn't true for Cleveland, but it certainly is true for Pittsburgh. Hey, you compete to the best of your ability. Compete to the best of your financial capability. I'm not even so sure Cleveland does that. They would tell you they do. Pittsburgh would probably tell you they do as well. But until owners open their books, we don't know what exactly they're doing, and we'll never know. And they're not opening their books. So when Tom Ricketts, the Cubs owner, comes out and says, hey, we're just trying to break even. Really? I'd love to see evidence of that. I'd love to see how the Cubs are simply breaking even if they're doing that with their baseball operation. And then I would like to see what the Wrigleyville development has meant to their bottom line as well. Because guess what? That's related to owning the Cubs. And there's another point as well with the Cubs and other teams for that matter. Franchise values have skyrocketed. Now, I know that you don't budget according to your franchise value, no more than a person budgets year to year based on the value of his home or her home. But at the same time, fans are tired of hearing, and I'm tired of hearing, that, oh my gosh, it's so hard. No, you're owner of one of 30 teams in a monopoly. You're doing okay.
Yeah, you can buy a team. I mean, most cases are like this. You bought a team for $800 million. Now it's worth $4 billion. And if you really were in financial pain, you can take out a loan based on the valuation of the franchise. That's just normal business tactics. Just also pointed out earlier, Ken, how we have a soft cap, but we do not have a soft floor. I think that's a major issue, right? As you know, the Pirates are profiting. They are. We got books a long time ago, and they're profiting, I think, even more nowadays. And their CEO said they're trying to win. We all know that they're not. The other part that I learned from your article was just a little history lesson, and we're not going way back here. Are you surprised that the vitriol is this fierce from so many fans? You would think that the Dodgers have just won 5 titles in a row. They won 1. They were a loss away, a Padres offense choke away from not winning this past season. They were embarrassed 2 years ago, right? They were a laughingstock 12 years ago with the Frank McCourt era, and they spent plenty of money. And some of their core that led them to this World Series could have easily been kept on their respective franchises. Freddie Freeman and Mookie Betts, they could have been locked up for long term by those teams. So I just started doing homework on what you were putting down and like kind of adding to it. And I'm like, damn, a million things have come together for them to win this one full season World Series, and people are losing their mind.
That's right. And that's the nature of the world we live in today. People lose their minds on social media because they have the ability to do so. 20 years ago, there was no outlet, and maybe that wasn't so great either because people didn't have the ability to speak out, but it gets a little ridiculous now, and it's a mob mentality, and we don't need to go through that. One thing I want to come back to, Scott, on the point of the luxury tax and the possibility of a similar mechanism at the bottom of the payroll structure as there is at the top. You can't tell me, from a simple fairness perspective, that that isn't the right thing to do for this sport. We're not getting a cap. And the owners, if they're going to push for a cap, and I know they're going to push for a cap, they do it every CBA. Okay, you want to have a work stoppage after building some positive momentum, back-to-back years of increasing attendance? Be my guest. That would be the dumbest thing the sport could do. But how about making the penalties that much harsher at the top and instituting a series of penalties at the bottom? So if, for instance, the Pirates go under a certain payroll level, let's say 100 million just for the sake of discussion, maybe 120, then you lose draft picks, you pay money, whatever the penalties you want to institute might be. That, to me, is a solution. And that way, if you had that, maybe if you want to increase revenue sharing and tell the big market teams, listen, guys, we're going to do this, you'd have a better case. Because in that situation, you would know the money would be spent. Right now, if I'm the Yankees and the Dodgers and the Mets and the Phillies and all these teams paying into the revenue sharing system, I would be ticked off by what I'm seeing. And this has been the case not just this offseason, but for a number of years, really decades in this sport.
All teams want the other teams to be good, but all teams should want to beat every other team. So I completely agree with what you're saying. Can we hit on the Kirby Yates? Like, we've heard they're in deep discussion. Does there anything, is anything have to do with possibly the fact that there's no room on the 40-man roster, and like a move like this has to be manipulated to be able to put him on the roster because they're kind of pressed right now?
Yes, it's possibly that, Eric, but it's also possibly Kirby Yates has to take his physical. And in 2021, that offseason, he had issues with 2 of his physicals and wound up not signing with the Braves was one, and I can't remember the other. So obviously, when you have a physical in question, you want to make sure the results are good and you're comfortable with the contract. But yes, they do have a 40-man issue, and it's possible they're trying to make a trade right now or work out some other creative solution to create the spot for Kirby Yates. I would imagine that it's kind of both those things, but I don't know for sure.
So, Ken, is this going to get done? Do we think this is going to get done, or did you guys prematurely tweet this?
AJ, all I tweeted prematurely was that they were in serious discussions. There's no dispute about that. They're in serious discussions. I did not report it was done.
Okay, because there was many times where you would call me and ask me where I was signing, and I told you I couldn't tell you until the physical was done, and you never prematurely tweeted anything. You just prematurely cursed me out on a text message.
I don't believe I ever cursed you out, but yeah, live in your own head, AJ. That's cool.
More in a minute, but first, a quick word from our sponsor of this video.
Kratz, do you like spending an hour on grocery shopping?
Nope. Speed up the process, please.
Introducing Hungryroot to the FT fam.
Now we can all be bougie with our own personal shopper to handle the food shopping, including Rex, based on what you're looking to put in your body.
I stack my Hungryroot box with items like gluten-free, dairy-free blueberry waffles for breakfast, shrimp veggie bowls for lunch, and a little filet mignon with potatoes and broccolini for dinner.
You can also say just, hey, Hungryroot, I eat paleo, or I'm vegetarian, and they load up your cart with personalized recommendations.
And those recs keep evolving as they learn about what you're into. Also, no BS, as in no artificial sweeteners or preservatives in any of Hungryroot's food. You're going to love Hungryroot as much as FT does. Take advantage of this exclusive offer. For a limited time, get 40% off your first box, plus get a free item in every box for life. Go to hungryroot.com/FT and use code FT. That's hungryroot.com/FT, code FT to get 40% off your first box and a free item of your choice for life.
And now back to the video.
We haven't had you on since we talked about the Rays storyline that you put out there and their complicated situation with what's next. I just want you to also mix in, if you can, the note that I learned about through your story, which is that the A's have this flip tax if they sell the team too soon after going to Vegas. I had some A's fans text me very upset and asked if I could follow up with you, because they were like, I thought that John Fisher, if he does somehow get this team to Vegas, will then just sell the team because he, raised his franchise value. And now it sounds like he'd wait 10 years so that he doesn't get taxed as much on the sale.
He can sell the team, but yes, there would be a tax that would be implemented immediately. I believe it goes through 2029 at a certain level, and then it diminishes each year. So the incentive to sell would be greater in the latter years of that 10-year commitment. But baseball did that because it did not charge him a relocation fee, and yet he is taking an expansion market, and they didn't want to simply have him go in there and flip the team based on, hey, I've got a better franchise value now, let's go. So that is what that was all about.
All right, I'll go to the Rays because you're talking about the A's and them, but the Rays are in a very similar, odd situation. They haven't started on their new ballpark yet. They haven't fixed the old ballpark yet. Now, they got the bonds okayed by the city, but isn't there something on Stu Sternberg's side that there's people, I don't know if they don't know if he has the money to, because he has to cover at least half of the stadium and the area around it. And there's people saying he might not have the capital to cover that, or what's going on with the Rays? Because I've heard kind of different stories here.
Well, the Rays' perspective is that the bond vote was delayed because of the hurricane. And because it was delayed, that pushes back construction of the new ballpark, and they lose a year. That's their perspective. It turned out the delay was only 6 weeks, but they're saying they lose a year. And they're responsible for cost overruns. And basically, it's going to cost more money if it takes another year. And their position is, we're not doing that. We don't want to do that. We want more money. We know we're responsible, but we want some help from the local entities before we commit to that. So that's the dispute that's going on right now. What I wrote was simply that if Stu Sternberg can't get this deal done in St. Pete, and then he can't get the team to Tampa through hold on. Let's go back. What I wrote was, if he can't get the team done or the deal done in St. Pete, then he should sell to interests that would move the team to Tampa. MLB does not want to leave the market. They want to stay in Tampa Bay. They believe, rightly or wrongly, right? We don't know for sure, but they believe that it's a vibrant and growing market and a good market for Major League Baseball. But most people think that the better place for the team is in Tampa. And we may see some evidence of that this year when they play at Steinbrenner Field, albeit in a minor league facility. So that was the point of what I wrote. Listen, if he can't get the deal done in St. Pete, enough. Get the team to Tampa. There are people who want to buy the team, and put it in the market where it should be in the first place and go about it that way.
Orlando.
Your reaction.
Orlando.
Okay. The face, the ugly face of Orlando.
Orlando.
AJ.
Just saying, Orlando would be perfect.
Ugly.
Orlando.
Yeah, we look like Disney. All right, go Kratz. Last question.
Actually, Tampa would be much more realistic for those who live in Orlando. Now, granted, the I-4 between Orlando and Tampa is a lot of traffic, always. But at the same time, Tampa is more centrally located in that region to attract fans from St. Petersburg and Orlando, as difficult as it might be to get to the park. That's why St. Petersburg has never really worked. Well, one reason. A person from Orlando is not going to go. It's too far.
True. But you know what? You know what's really great for people in Orlando? They built the stadium in Orlando. Plus, you get Disney people, you get Universal people, you get SeaWorld people, you get people on the coast. People from Tampa can make that miserable drive over.
Most tourists in the country.
But by far.
By
the
far.
one thing I will say about Vegas compared to Orlando, they're like, oh, the tourists in Vegas. Do you know that Orlando has double the amount of tourists that Vegas gets? Double. Vegas gets like 40 million. Orlando gets over 80 million every year, right? And
you know what, Scott? I am so happy
we have
to be
something
on with the president of the Orlando Chamber of Commerce. It's amazing.
And we have something
here. Chat with him.
Ken, we have something here called the tourist tax, where we have plenty of money to go around to build a stadium. Plenty of money.
Ken, I sit next to him every day. Trust me, I know more facts about Orlando than everyone except for AJ at this point. So
You're a resident now, Scott.
I am a resident.
Thank you.
I'm
You
sold.
should be rooting for this also.
Florida taxes, baby. All right, Kratz, you're left.
No state income tax.
Some people want to know the one voter. Should fans get to know who the one voter is? And what's your reaction to the single voter that did not vote for Ichiro?
Eric, I'm glad you asked this, and I have strong feelings about it in a number of ways. One, obviously, it goes without saying that it's ridiculous that even one voter did not vote for Ichiro. Whether it's a man, a woman, whoever it might have been, I'd like to hear the justification for that. There is no justification. The only logic, if you want to even call it logic, would be, I don't believe in any first ballot Hall of Famers, I guess. I don't understand that, and I don't know if that person would have been voting for Mariano Rivera a couple of years ago, but that part of it obviously is not great. That said, the witch hunt, or the proposed idea of a witch hunt that takes place every year when we have these things, is to me also ridiculous. And when you have a voting body of 394 people, and 393 agree, that actually is pretty good. And it speaks to who Ichiro was. Does anyone really think Ichiro is sitting wherever he's sitting today, or hanging out wherever he's hanging out, wondering, man, I wonder who didn't vote for me. I wish it was 100%. It's just not good enough, 99%, 7%. No, I don't think he cares. He shouldn't care. It's ridiculous. And for this discussion to take place every year and kind of take place in a way that I wouldn't say overshadows the voting, but certainly becomes a point of conversation. We all know this is dumb. We all know the person should have voted for Ichiro, but I don't believe Derek Jeter or Ichiro or Cal Ripken, who had 8 votes that he didn't go his way, 8 voters who didn't vote for him. I don't believe those guys are diminished one bit. I don't believe they think they're diminished one bit, and I think the whole conversation gets a little silly.
I'm going to get to the bottom of it on Saturday, Ken. Don't you worry.
Yeah, right.
Every writer that's
Good
at
luck.
the BBWAA,
Yeah.
I'm going to ask them on camera.
One more
Did
point
you
on
vote
this.
for Ichiro?
One more point.
Did
on
you
this,
vote for
guys.
Ichiro? Ken, did you vote for Ichiro? Ken, did you vote for Ichiro?
Yes, of course I voted for Ichiro. One more point on this. So there's been some discussion, hey, why don't you guys make your votes public? We have the option of making our votes public, and most of us do. And we have petitioned the Hall to make all of our votes public. We have asked for that, but the Hall refuses to let us do it. So when we vote for the awards, the Cy Young, the Manager of the Year, the MVP, those votes are public. There's no choice. We control that process. We don't totally control this process, and that's why it's the way it is. But that said, again, too much is made of this. We had a great day yesterday in our sport. Ichiro, CC Sabathia, and Billy Wagner went into the Hall of Fame. I wish that is what we were talking about instead of this stupid one voter, which means nothing in any real sense.
Thank you.
Conspiracy theory from Ken Rosenthal.
It is being
the Hall of Fame is
overshadowed.
rigged because they don't show the votes.
No, but
That's what I got out of what Ken just said.
It is being overshadowed because networks that never talk about baseball are spending some time on it today to do their witch hunt. And it's like, okay, cool. I'm with you. If we all ignore it, it won't be a story. So let's ignore it, besides AJ polling everyone on Saturday. All right, Ken, thank you very much. We will see you on Saturday, and we'll see you on Fair Territory later this week.
AJ, bring your pitchfork. Let's go.
All right, I got one handy. Let's go. Hey, everybody. Be sure to like and subscribe for more content.
We're back here every weekday, all year long, so do not miss an episode.
The videos are coming in all day. Here's another video you might enjoy.
Baseball the way it should be covered.